I'm going to pass this over to you, Mark. But before I do, guys, I just have to say, Mark, congratulations on becoming a grandfather for the first time. With that, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm going to go and show my screen. I think it's already showing, but somebody confirm that it's all running.
It is. I don't see it. Yes, I can see your screen. Looks great.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, Elizabeth. Yes, Mark Vogt, your fearless chairperson of the Chicagoland SharePoint Users Group for nearly the last year, is now a grandfather. And she looks like this. Her name is Harvest Lynn Bessemhill Vogt, and those are just most of her names, but not all of them. Happy, healthy little baby born on August 15th, and she's pretty cool. That's her dad right there, Kyle. So, yeah, very neat. All right, let's see what we got for today's agenda. It's actually going to be kind of a fun day with a lot of different people weighing in instead of just being like a one-sided lecture from me. So I'm giddy that everybody's starting to, that more and more people are starting to participate. We're certainly going to cover understanding SharePoint's purpose. We always start with that at the beginning when other people are rolling on. I see we've only got 6 attendees out of 17 or 20 that are registered. So more are coming on. We'll talk about, we'll also share the slides for lessons learned from fellow members. There's going to be some recent news and upcoming events, news including some new meetups that we want you guys to know about. We'll launch into other events from on Office 365 from Michael Blumenthal. We'll dive into some cool new stuff and demo time. And then lastly, as time permits, bringing your own problems. So let's dive in. We'll keep in mind, we always talk about some big picture stuff. Last month, we talked about digging into tasking, and I dove in with a number of slides. I just want to try to review these again, that SharePoint is a collaboration, an empowering technology. And one of the areas you want to start to empower is in the area of tasking. You have to understand what tasking is all about. What we talked about last month was a better way to define a task content type by including things like a description and a percent complete, so that the description is going to be a rich text that allows you to embed screenshots, graphics, everything for understanding a particular task, so that the task itself becomes the contract between you and the person that's actually going to be performing it, and that you keep track of another notes field for being able to manage exactly what was going on, kind of a log of what's going on about that particular task. Lastly, we also talked about there being a choice field that you use, a condition field that is a choice type that you carry like a flag. You're going to flag that task, green, yellow, orange, red. These are all useful things to do about a task towards striving to get away from merely sharing and merely communicating, but actually tasking as part of collaboration. And that's going to bring SharePoint to the forefront as being a powerful tool. Inside your individual tasks, you want to try to keep things separated between the description of what the task is and what needs to be done, and the notes that actually describes what the status is of the task as you move. By doing those, by keeping those two things completely separate, you'll find that it's very powerful as a tool to start talking about tasks. Ultimately, you can put task lists together and form literally dashboards that at a glance can tell you everything that's going right in the project. It's all green, and the things that are different colors, something other than green, like yellow and like orange, become very, very evident very, very quickly on the landing page of your individual project sites. That can be applied not only to tasks, but to risk, goals, deliverables, etc. But it becomes a standardized nomenclature, a standardized way that you're going to communicate information. If it's green, if it's blue, it's good, you can ignore it. If it's something other than that, pay attention to it, handle those particular exceptions. That's, again, a part of addressing and evolving towards using tasks. Diving now into news and events. On my own side, I always like to give a little cut, and then Mike's going to supplement it. In the last month, we got some interesting news from Microsoft. On 7/21. They actually announced that for the first time in the history of Office 365, revenues from 365 actually surpassed the revenues for that period of time for SharePoint on premises. This marks what's called an inflection point. It means that now, going forward, Office 365 is going to start to eclipse. Hey, get it? There was an eclipse a couple of days. It's going to start to eclipse the on-premises. In fact, there was an uptick of about 43% growth over this time last year. That's an incredible number. Microsoft's had a really good quarter in nearly every field except for, I think, Surface laptop sales. something like that. Other things in the know news-wise, communication sites have finally rolled out. In fact, MTech finally got them. Only I didn't see it soon enough to be able to put a demo together today. Michael, in fact, is going to do a very brief one, and we're going to dive in more next week. We also saw that even yesterday there were improvements announced to the SharePoint framework extensions. There's a new release candidate. Probably the biggest takeaway is this one listed down below, that now it's possible to actually deploy web parts and extensions across the entire Office 365 tenant all in one fell swoop. There are some caveats associated with it. You can't have a list in a library, any assets, quote unquote, that are related. But if it's just a web part and there are no assets, yeah, in one basically push button, you can actually make that web part available across your entire tenant, meaning all your site collections. That's pretty groovy. Lastly, on the news list, 823, we got a new meetup site called the Midwest Hybrid Cloud Adoption meeting, and we've got 2 guest speakers here that will talk today. Paul and Angie, we'll hear from them shortly. On the horizon, and Mike will probably talk to this a little bit more, we've got in September and November, we've got Ignite and we've got the SP TechCon. So there's where we're at. I'm going to hand the stage over now to Paul Fligg and potentially Angie Hohensee from Metalogic, who are going to talk about a brand new meetup. We wanted to give them a little bit of the stage today to talk about this particular group that's forming, in the hopes that we can cross-pollinate between the SharePoint Users Group environment and the Midwest Hybrid Cloud. Paul, over to you.
Thanks, everyone. First and foremost, wanted to thank Michael for providing this invite. Actually ran this idea by him earlier this week, and he recommended not only joining the group, but also becoming a presenter. So Angie is our Director of Customer Advocacy. I don't think she's going to have anything to add here, but I ultimately had this idea probably over, I don't know, the last 30 to 45 days, and ultimately just decided to move forward with it. So really the whole concept behind Midwest Hybrid Cloud Adoption Meetup is to bridge the gap between what everyone calls the business and ultimately tech to further adopt cloud within respective organizations. Got the idea, you know, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm with Metalogics. We're a tools organization, right? I'm actually have a meeting with Michael later today to talk about a project, but I digress. Really, the whole concept is going to be around bringing in guests that can help have those discussions and ultimately overcome some of the challenges and the blockers with increasing cloud workloads. The first gentleman, we do have a date set, I believe the 23rd, or I think it was mentioned there. I think it was maybe the 19th or the 23rd. Is the 20th of no,
19th.
October 19th.
October. So Ben Curry is going to be our first guest. Ben Curry is an Office 365 MVP who is also who's also a SharePoint DLP expert and a CISSP. So he's done some rather extensive projects at not only NASA, but he's a key partner of ours, and we engage him on many fast track discussions around, you know, how is it that we can, you know, accelerate migration velocity, and more importantly, how is it that we can overcome some of the security blockers, you know, around further in cloud adoption. So Ben is going to be our first guest. I believe the second guest, which we're shooting for, trying to pin down a date sometime in November, is going to be one of my instructors actually that I had over the past couple months. And this gentleman used to run IT for Lockheed Martin, ran the organization Firefly, started up a practice really just as a thing to do. I don't think he needs to work anymore, but really specifically around understanding business process architecture and building the relevance of IT. I think some of the other ideas that I've had, one might relate to healthcare and some of the themes that we're seeing across hospital M&A activity, and, you know, the various HIPAA and privacy blockers for cloud adoption. There's even been some thoughts around you know, taking the legal angle too. So that would probably take us well into the first quarter of next year. I think the cadence here is going to be to get 2 in later this year, October, November, Then we have the holidays in December. Probably won't focus on a meetup in December, but then pick it right back up in January. So that's kind of the idea behind the whole group. Certainly open to any thoughts, feedback. Again, I'm jumping in with both feet here, and it's typically the way that I learn and get the most out of something. So
you did the right thing, Paul. I got one quick question. Even though we use a meetup site for the Chicagoland SharePoint Users Group, we found that our attendeeship actually increased when we went virtual. Is your meetup going to continue to be physical in nature, meet in downtown Chicago, something like this? Or is it in fact going to try to shift and become virtual as well?
That's a very good idea. We have a gentleman who's part of our organization who is all about, scheduling field events. I think that maybe we just, double the amount and make one virtual and make one in person every month.
Sure.
And they could be the same theme, right? And I like the idea of a virtual meeting as the name indicates, it's Midwest focused. I didn't want to just limit it to Chicago as I talked to organizations across multiple states. So I think that there's certainly some value to be added there and to take it as virtual.
And this is Michael. I'll add that you can do events that are both physical and virtual at the same time. The other user group I'm involved in, the Office 365 Adoption User Group, we have physical meetings, but we open a Skype for Business call during those meetings so that people can attend remotely.
That makes perfect sense.
Excellent. So that's about all I have, and look forward to covering a lot of ground here in 60 days.
Fantastic. Thanks, Paul. I'm going to redisplay that slide so people see where the meetup is. If you go to meetup.com and Midwest Hybrid Cloud Adoption Meeting, you'll be able to find and sign that up. We'll also have this posted up as a courtesy up on our meetup site, so that if people in the 280, 290 members that are a part of this group, they'll be able to go to this meetup, see a link that'll take them to that meetup, click, and be able to cross-pollinate across both of the organizations. Would that be useful for you, Paul?
I definitely think it would be. Thank you.
Fantastic. Let's continue then. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Angie. We've got Office 365 News, Weather, and Sports with Michael Blumenthal. Michael, over to you. Do you need the desktop?
Yes, please.
I'm going to stop sharing. I am going to, change presenters to Michael. Over to you, Michael.
Show my screen. Let's see if that's the right screen. Monitor too clean. There we go. Okay. So can you see my slides?
Waiting for it to pop up.
We can.
Great. Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Michael Blumenthal. I'm a Microsoft MVP specializing in Office 365 with a previous background of over a decade of SharePoint experience as well, having started with SharePoint when 2003 was in beta. I am currently the principal engineer, which you can really think about as a Office 365 service manager and product manager at a leading broadcast media group here in downtown Chicago, where I have day-to-day responsibility for managing most of Office 365, all the collaboration workloads, but not the communication workloads. That said, I'm here today to cover some news and announcements, what's new in Office 365 over the last month or so. So we'll start with one of the announcements about Excel. The latest build of Excel on Windows Desktop build 1707, which is now available for users who are in current channel first release. The big improvement in this release is co-authoring arriving on the desktop. Now we've had co-authoring in Excel on the web for quite some time, and in fact, co-authoring on the desktop has been in limited release since March. You had to be in Office Office Insider fast ring to get these features, but now it's in wider availability to current channel first release users, and so this is the co-authoring capabilities that you've seen in Word, in PowerPoint, in Excel on the web is now available in Excel on the desktop on Windows, and it will eventually come to Mac as well, and will eventually come to all users. The next thing that's been updated in Office 365, again on the client side, is you can see this in PowerPoint as well as in Word. You now have an autosave capability and a new comments UI. So if you'll notice that you're starting to see more icons show up one row down from the close. Here, let me turn on my laser pointer. One row down from the close box. So you've got this comment, history, and share icons. And so let's take a closer look at that. So this is PowerPoint, but this is also in Word. You see, on one hand, we've got autosave showing up, and so that's now continuously saving. Sure, you had an autosave previously that if something crashed or between saves, you had a recovery option. This is now continuous saving. And then with the share, history, and comment icons, comment gives you this comment pane. And again, this is for collaborating with other people. The history gives you the activity pane, and so you can not only see the different versions, but you can also get access to previous versions, and the sharing experience there as well. So when you can invite other people, and then you get notified when they actually enter the document. And again, the document has to be stored in OneDrive or a SharePoint Online document library. Basically, if you have two people that are each working on this document, either in the web version or the desktop application, and they'll be able to see each other's changes as they happen. And that the details of the experience vary from product to product, so it's a little different Word than it is in PowerPoint than it is in Excel, but the fundamental concepts are the same. And again, Word and PowerPoint have had co-authoring on the desktop for a while, but this month now it's in wider release for Excel.
Cool.
Moving on to communication sites, as Mark mentioned, communication sites have landed. They came to my tenant, I say about a month ago, and then today to MTech's tenant. So if they haven't landed in your tenant, they should be showing up soon. And so the way you know that they're landed is if you go to the SharePoint homepage, which is not the root SharePoint site in your tenant, but if you start from any SharePoint site and click on the word SharePoint in the suite bar, that page that you get that shows you your frequent sites, that's the SharePoint home that has the option to create a new site from it. And when you create a new site, instead of getting the option just to create an Office 365 group, you'll now have a choice to create either an Office 365 group or a communication site. And so that choice is important. Communication sites are not for collaboration, they're for publishing. They're really the new generation of publishing sites. And one of the benefits of the new generation of publishing sites is that these are responsive sites. They look good in not only a web browser, but on a mobile device. They have these, use a new set of web parts that are responsive as well, and they support multi-column layouts. I will demo some of that, but there's one more piece of news that I want to go over first, and that is that there's additional reports available in the Office 365 admin web pages. In the reporting pages, there's now reports on Yammer group activity. So there's three kinds of Yammer reports now: Yammer activity overall, device usage, and Yammer groups activity. And so you get charts and graphs that can report up to 180 days. So now I'm going to switch gears, and let me pull up. This is a communication site that I created about the Chicago Pedway, and you can see what you have here is basically a hero graphic image area where you have a number of images side by side, and again, this is the desktop view. And then here I've got an embedded video and a little text and some contact info, and a link to the mobile app. Again, because these are responsive, and you see what happens when I shrink this down. Yeah, let me go back to here, and if I black that, let's try it again. Black that out. I guess unblack that. Anyway. Okay, so with the Pedway site, part of the noise in the background then, what you can see happening is that the hero image and the layout shrinks down. Let's see if I can get a handle on.
Yeah, they make the boundaries kind of small, don't they?
Yeah. So as the viewport shrinks, you can see the images are ending differently. The hero image is going different. There we go. And see, it just went from
a multi-column, multi-row layout.
Right there. So multi-column down to one, and then you can click through these like that. And by the way, these are hot linkable. And so again, on your mobile phone, it lays out nicely. It's the hero image and your text and so forth. And so not only would this look good in a mobile web browser, but in the SharePoint mobile app, it will look good as well. But you have to have the latest version of the SharePoint mobile app, because on one of the earlier versions, you get some funky rendering behavior. So let's take a look at the editing experience. Click the edit button, preparing the page for editing. So of course I can edit any of these, and I get a task pane similar to what we're familiar with in old style publishing pages and web parts. To add new content, you mouse over the dividing line, and here we go. So this little pop-up shows we can have different kinds of web parts. And so we've got the featured web parts, which is just text, image, document, link, embed, highlighted content. You've got your section layouts, the multi-column section layouts. And so again, those are new to this feature. Bing Maps, document library, these are all your web part choices. Image gallery, list, preview, news, office people, power, quick chart, quick links.
I notice a lot of that, Michael, is all very visual in nature, isn't it? The whole idea is to create this visually compelling experience and remove all of the headaches of responsive design from the authors, so that mere mortals can create and maintain these communication sites. I think that's the most exciting part about it, is the mere mortal aspect of it. Right.
And you've got an events web part. Note that the events web part, let's stick this there. Let's see, does this tie to, so this uses an events list, and does this kind of layout. But in general, what I'm seeing with SharePoint and calendar lists is that Microsoft is trending toward using Exchange calendars and Exchange shared mailboxes Exchange-based calendars in shared mailboxes as their preferred calendaring solution versus SharePoint list calendars. So keep that in mind. One of the things you'll see is that as your generic list and your libraries get modern look and feel, there is no plan, as I understand it, to give a SharePoint calendar list a modern look and feel. So that's something to watch out for. But other than that, you can see that. Here, let's delete this one, and here, let's try.
Everybody, Michael's just giving us a real quick overview of what these communication sites look like. Next month, we're scheduling a deep dive into these as well. It's just a real high pass because everybody's excited. They're just arriving in our tenants now.
Let's see. So let's do a 3-column layout, and then in here we can do. And the other thing to notice is that you've got both video and stream. But again, we've been told that Office 365 Video is going away in favor of Stream, and that Office 365 Video channels will be migrated into Stream around the end of the year.
Cool.
So so you can do a bunch of different web parts and so forth. And I'm just going to go here and discard my changes. And again, you do have version history on the pages. So,
hey, Mike, do me one more favor. Go click on the SharePoint link up at the top to show everybody how you actually get this.
Great point. Thank you.
Some of you have organizations that already have communication sites, but you went in and, let's say, tried the old wizard. You went to site contents, create new subsite. You got the old wizard that steps you through all the possible website templates. You looked inside under collaboration. You looked underside enterprise. You looked even under custom, and you couldn't see any communication sites. That's because they're exposing this communication site through this new mechanism. Mike, do you want to show them?
Sure. So what you see, so this page, which is the one that you get access to through the SharePoint link in the suite bar. So this bar up here is called the suite bar, and clicking on SharePoint takes you to SharePoint Home. So historically, we might have talked about the root SharePoint site being the corporate intranet, and sometimes that being considered your SharePoint homepage. Well, that's the company SharePoint homepage, but SharePoint's homepage is this page, and you get to that from there. And this shows you the sites you're following, recent sites you've visited, featured links, and it will feature news stories and frequent sites and suggested sites. And this link up here, create a site, that gives you these two options. Now before, you only saw this team site, which really is an Office 365 group site. Now you have this new option of the communication site. And notice the difference in descriptions. Team site, share documents, have conversations with your team, which is really, again, using Exchange mailbox, a shared mailbox for that group. Keep track of events, which you can do with Planner, and manage tasks, which you can do with Planner. Actually, track of events you would do with Exchange Calendar, manage tasks with Planner, and more with a site connected to an Office 365 group. Communication sites, publish, again, publish, dynamic, beautiful content to people in your organization to keep them informed and engaged in topics, events, or projects. So two very different missions, and so that's hopefully clear enough to help people understand what to use when.
And it's not like your organization, if you leave this for a minute, your organization is going to end up using both of these, everybody. There's going to be times when you're creating lots of team sites because that's where you're going to work on projects, whether they're formal large ones or small informal ones. When it's a tight little group of people inter-collaborating amongst themselves, it's going to be the team site still. When it's a tiny little group of authors, like your marketing, like your corporate communication department, trying to find a way to communicate in a visually compelling mechanism out to the entire organization, That's what this communication site's mission is supposed to be. And it looks like they knocked it out of the park. When you see what's possible on a phone, you can start imagining for the first time your organization. You could imagine yourself, I don't want to say in the car, you're at Starbucks, you're sitting in a restaurant and you're paging through. You actually decide to page through and look at what your company's doing because they're finding a way to compellingly communicate out to you using these communication sites. It's going to be pretty exciting, and next month's going to be a deep dive. We're going to actually build these from scratch and try to see what they might be used for. Mike, thanks for that little brief demo.
Sure. There's one more thing I want to share, and that is the upcoming events. So you mentioned some. We have there's some other ones I want to cover. So there's Visual Studio Live coming to town near the end of the month of next month, I should say, September, and this is right before Microsoft Ignite. So Microsoft Ignite is Microsoft's premier technical education conference for all of North America, and really ends up with a global draw. And they're holding it in Orlando. So actually, is there any way we can do a poll? If you're attending this conference, can you put something in the chat window?
Yeah, we can try doing it that way, or I've actually got a demo in a few minutes of doing the Microsoft Forms, and I'll add that on as part of the survey. Okay,
yeah. So if you're going to Ignite, let us know. I will be running a session called BRK 1053, Breakout 1053. Actually, that's the breakout code, the session code, but the actual session title is Office 365 Adoption User Group Meetup. And it's on Tuesday, 9/26 at 12:45 p.m. for 45 minutes. And we're going to be doing a condensed version of our usual Office 365 Adoption User Group, which usually runs 3.5 hours. So we're going to condense it, cram it, and go a bit meta and explain what our user group is, how to find how to find an Office 365 Adoption User Group, because there are other people running these all over the world. And walk through the way we run ours, and encourage people to either find one or start one near them. So that's there's that special event, and then I will be on hand throughout the rest of the conference, probably in the Ask the Experts area, and my exact staffing is an MVP. I'm still waiting to get the details on that, but you can certainly find me there. Or reach out to me through Meetup or what have you. And I would encourage you to at least put this on your calendar. If you're registered for Meetup, then please go and add this to your calendar. Once we get back from that, the next Office 365 Adoption User Group meeting is coming. I see, Mark, that you've opened up a poll. It says organizer must close poll to enable screen sharing. Did people lose my visual? Do you want to give a minute to complete that poll?
Let's try. It says organizers and panelists don't get to vote, so I tried clicking.
Okay, so
let's go for 10 more seconds and then we'll move on. Elizabeth, if you can drop that quick poll in just a few seconds. All right, Mike, I see your screen again, October 5th, OneNote and Ignite recap.
Yep. So the next Office 365 Adoption User Group meeting is October 5th. And again, if you go down to our Meetup site, and I'll put the URL in the notes, we'll be having someone talk about OneNote, and then we'll also do an Ignite recap, because Ignite is the place we're going to do a huge number of announcements and news about what's coming. It'll be their time to reveal the roadmap update. So I would expect it to be a fairly quiet this meetup next month, because I believe it falls before Ignite. There probably won't be much Office 365 news before Ignite, but there'll be a heck of a lot of it at Ignite. And so we'll catch that both at my user group, the Office 365 Adoption User Group on October 5th, and then this regular meeting in October as well. Also, October 19th, Paul and his user group is going to meet for the first time. And again, Ben Curry, I would strongly recommend you come out and see Ben Curry. Then there's the Collab 365 Global Conference, November 1 and 2. So this is a completely online global conference that runs for 24 hours straight, nonstop. I will be having a session in it, but there's a ton of content there. So no one expects you to attend the whole thing, but if you can register now and then the day of, pick and choose the things you want to watch, it's a great opportunity for free learning.
Cool. Mike, I'm going to ask you to post a link on the Meetup site or provide me a link to that global conference, the one on November 1st and 2nd.
Okay. I will do that. And then SharePoint Fest Chicago comes back to town December 5th through 8th. And again, the Office 365 Adoption User Group will be running a panel one of the nights of the conference. So both the October 5th, our October 5th meeting and our December meeting at SharePoint Fest, those you can register for now and on our Meetup site. And then I also have a mailing list that I run where I, every so often when I can find the time to do it, send out an email letting people know about some of these upcoming events. And I've got a Listly list where I track these as well. So if you're interested in my mailing list, you're welcome to join that. Otherwise, just tune in back here or come to my user group meeting and I'll cover upcoming events and those as well. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn this back over to Mark.
Thanks, Mike.
And do we have the poll results?
Oops. I lost my screen sharing button, Elizabeth. It says show screen. But not, oh, here we go. All right, you guys tell me when you can see the screen again.
And I saw a glimpse of the poll results. Can we talk about those for a moment, or do you want to do that later?
What did we have, Elizabeth? What did we get for results out of the 17 people attending today's session? How many are going to Ignite?
There is, actually, we have, let me just share it for you guys so you can see visually as well.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
It does, what's nice is it actually does that for you automatically. So there's 13% are unsure, 88% are not going, and as of right now, doesn't look like some of our attendees are able to go, but that could change.
What I'm going to say is I think for the most part it's sold out, but for those of you who are not going, every year Microsoft has published all the session content from the event on MSDN Channel 9. So you can turn, and the keynotes, I believe, are streamed live. So even if you aren't going, you can still pick up a lot of information from it and learning opportunities from it just by watching either the live streams or the recorded sessions when they come up on MSDN Channel 9.
Yeah, that's what I found myself doing the last couple of years. I don't know why it's worked out that way. That I just, the 3 years running now, I haven't been able to get to Ignite. But for everybody else, that's good. All right, thank you, Michael. We're going to jump on to the next one. We get to start talking about member tips and tricks, and we're getting more and more participation from the Chicago SharePoint Users Group members, including Jay Champagne. Jay, you're going to talk about SharePoint List to Power BI Tile to Power App. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
I am going to launch your presentation and show it. You're going to talk to it. It'll give me a second for it to load.
Great. So, hi, everybody. My name is Jay Champagne. I'm a web developer, systems admin, and a bit of a SharePoint evangelist. A few months back, I attended the SharePoint Saturday event where I learned of developer subscription to the Office 365 platform. which I was very excited to jump upon. And around that very same time, I started doing some ride-sharing activity with Uber and Lyft. And I thought that, geez, you know, the SharePoint Online list might be a great place to log my mileage. So if you recall, last month I spoke with you all, and you all helped me out a bit regarding some naming conventions, and I'm happy to report that I hit the space bar much less these days. The thing I decided to do essentially with my SharePoint Online list was log mileage, as I had mentioned, and I was also, you know, enticed by the free trial of Power BI to see what that was all about. And essentially, the Power App started it all out. When I started in on Power App, I was pretty impressed with how easy it was to create an app and how easy that made entering the data into my SharePoint Online list from a mobile device. And from, you know, coordinating with Mark, he mentioned that, you know, maybe I could share some of that information that I found with the group. So that's what I'm here to do today. Essentially, there's a handful of different things you can do quite easily with your Power App or your Power BI information. One of the things you can do would be to embed your Power App in a Power BI dashboard, which essentially is, you know, just using an iframe and bringing the app into the report that way, which is pretty slick. But what I was focusing on was putting some of the Power BI tiles into my app. And here on the screen, you can see a couple of links to online resources where you find more detailed information. But essentially, the pieces of my puzzle here are the online SharePoint Online list, which I use to create a Power App. Basically, you know, just selecting the SharePoint Online list and having it create on its own, and then making a few modifications to that, and then using my Power BI Pro trial, I started digging into some of the data that I was storing in my work log, I call it, essentially my mileage log for driving some ride share. Now, the important point to note here would be that in order for your Power App user to see the Power BI tile in the app, the Power BI dashboard that the tile lives on must be shared with the Power App user.
That makes sense.
So I forgot what I was saying. If you would skip to the next slide, it might jog my memory.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially to do this, it's really simple. It's pretty crazy how awesome it is. All you really do essentially is insert a control that is a Power BI app tile control into your Power App, make the selections of where the tile exists, and you're off to the races. What I did is I created a new screen in my app to host some tiles and essentially just linked that off the initial screen. And then once I had some navigation to that new screen, I just started inserting Power BI tile controls. And on the next slide, you see that the selections for the BI tile are really straightforward. And you essentially just select the workspace that your tile lives on and the dashboard that the tile lives on and the specific tile you want to import, and presto, you're good. Bring it on to the screen and locate it, position it how you want. And the tips that I have to share is, wow, it's so incredibly easy. If you want to share some tiles with the users of your app, this is a great way to go about doing it. And you can get quite a ways with the programming of your Power App with just simply using the Excel formulas you already know.
Fantastic. And 6 months ago, this didn't exist. We were crying out for the Power BI tile, even back in February, March, April. And I remember having to do this, Jay, using the iframe and finding a way to pass authentication through it. It was not easy. So when you popped up a couple of days ago and said, hey, the tile is now available. It makes it easy, and you wanted to show this to the team. I was all for it, trying to show everybody that if we slip backwards one, down here in this section where now you have this additional control available to you to simply drag and drop onto your Power Apps pages, these individual detailed screens. This is all part of your normal Power Apps template. When you spin up a new Power App, you get a browse screen template that you just have to configure a little bit. You get a detail screen that you just have to configure. You get an edit screen that you just have to configure a little bit. And then the custom screen that it looks like Jay built was just dragging and dropping instances of that Power BI tile. And then in Power BI, what, you assembled those particular visualizations and then they were available to you?
Yeah,
so
correct. I use some DAX to create some formulas and then use those measures to create report tiles, which I shared onto the dashboard, which would be where you would share individual items to different users, I believe.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, you know, using the Power App versus using like the SharePoint app to access the list data, it's so easy to use the Power App in comparison.
Yeah, and I've been noticing that the performance is getting better every day as well. That back in very early, I'll be candid with everybody, back in early January, February, the bandwidth, the accessibility of some of these apps was noticeably slow, almost frustratingly slow. How long it took to load into your phone or load into your tablet. It's a little frustrating. And they have made leaps and bounds in the last 6 months that now the idea that you're creating these Power Apps, and the Power Apps live in a Power Apps portal, and that the new version of them are downloaded the minute you go and launch the Power Apps app that's on your phone, whether it's Android or otherwise, is now, let's call it an acceptable delay, that now it becomes just another go-to application like all of the other applications. What's the performance been like on this app that you built, Jay?
You know, it hasn't really been all that bad because mostly it's just storing a few mileage, and it only really calculates the calculations when I open it. So, I mean, it loads the app probably about 30 seconds, and then I'm in editing my log.
Which is long enough. You're sitting in a car, you just got out of the Uber, and you want to try to record it in less than half a minute. You feel good about it. For me, it's recording. I build an app for flight logs and stuff like this, roads, anything around flying drones, and having to record it for the FAA records books and stuff. Same kind of experience. If it's under 30 seconds, you don't mind waiting because you're saving so much effort to try to record that information any other way, and you get this great graphics coming out afterwards. What do you think's on the horizon for you as far as when the Power BI trial is over and you have to start paying for this?
Yeah, I've already scrapped my new screen.
And that's going to be what, roughly, it's going to be around what, $10 per person per month, I think, is what people.
Yeah, I decided that it wasn't really something I was interested in doing just for this the rideshare detail. So I didn't continue with it, but it was really interesting to see what I could do with it.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think Microsoft's going to eventually drop that price down. They're trying to make it worth their while, and it's around the $10 per person per month mark for the Power BI once you switch over. But for organizations that know that they actually have a genuine mobile strategy, that there's going to be far more than just one mobile app, then the $10 per person per month becomes a drop in the bucket. Because you're multiplying that by, you're dividing that cost by possibly dozens of applications that are all going to be in a little suite icon on your phone that have to do with your company, whether it's Tribune Media, whether it's MTech, whether it's MetaLogic. You're going to click on a group of icons that represent an entire suite of applications that you get to access from your mobile phone. And what's probably the most important sell here is it's going to be the business side people that are slightly tech savvy that are going to be developing these apps. We're not going to be waiting months and months and months and months or longer for the IT in our organizations to actually build these apps. We'll be able to put together 80–90% of that functionality and only maybe have to reach out to them for about 10%. Jay, you were talking about the DAX and the formulas. You might need a little help inside there, but the rest of it, you guys get to design, the end users themselves. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else to add on this one, Jay?
SumX in DAX was really my saving grace when it came to aggregating some of the data on the calculations I was doing.
I see another presentation for you next week where you're going to talk a little bit about the data analysis expressions language and come up with another 5-minute demo on doing some simple calculations. Are you up for that?
I'm not sure at the moment.
Okay, we'll keep working on you. But I love the presentation. Thanks, Jay.
Great, thank you.
All right, let's jump in and continue. I'm going to put that one away, and we're going to jump back in.
Mark?
Yes.
So there is a pricing calculator for Power BI on Microsoft's website, and I can put that into the chat window, but I think you have to reshare that so other people can see it. And so it's priced not only per user, but there's also some sort of facility for a site license kind of concept based on number of nodes.
I got to restart this PowerPoint slide presentation. Sorry, everybody. While Michael's posting that.
And then I will also share a handful of links for the events that I was talking about. So Elizabeth will need to repost those as well.
Do you want me to change presenter back to you, Michael?
Nope, that's fine.
Okay. I see we're coming up on only about 7 minutes left, so it's going to be a compressed rest of the day. Let me get to where we were at. Can you guys, is my screen sharing right now?
Yes.
Okay, so far so good. Michael, we already saw the communication sites, the quick overview from him. About the only thing we're going to cover then the rest of today is I want to dive just a little bit into Microsoft Forms. If I recall, I did a little presentation last week, but it was only theoretical in nature because Forms wasn't available in our tenant. It now is available, so I'm going to jump in and actually do a demo for you guys. And then if time permits, we're going to do one other one called Share Integrate. Let me bring up a tab over into my shared screen. Give me one moment. Tell me when you guys can see this. Can everybody see the forms.office.com website that I'm sharing right now?
Yes.
Okay. When you log into forms.office.com, either from the tile, the Office 365 app launcher, you'll be able to find forms listed on here. It's in there somewhere. It pops up. Then you'll get into this form presentation. When you want to click on a new form, it allows you to immediately start adding questions. Oh, I've got to finish signing in. Sorry. You guys get to witness the new organization sign-in experience for Office 365.
That's something I should have mentioned in my news is the new sign-in experience. They're beta-ing to widely.
Yeah, I've been trying to use it for maybe the last week, I suppose, that I've seen it all. When you click on either a new quiz or a new form is a new survey, a new quiz just gives you more information. I already started one just to compress this down. It was just clicking and adding. The form is actually going to load, and I can look here and see how I've been actually building it out. The last question that I'm going to add, and this is where I want to leverage you guys. Let's say that I'm going to ask a choice type question. The question is, are you going to Ignite 2017? We're going to have, and they already give some suggested options. We're going to literally add all of them on there. Yes, no, and maybe. So I'm finished with adding and editing my particular survey now. I can actually see what it looks like in a preview. The preview is going to either give me the computer view that you're seeing right now, or if you want to see what it looks like in a mobile, it's actually going to show you what it looks like in a phone. Very cool. You could see yourself setting up lots of surveys on a regular basis and sending these things out. What the question that gets begged here is, what's the best way to actually share it? And when you finally, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, it already says saved. I didn't have to actually tell it to go and save. And I've already got a handful of responses that are just part of my testing. But one of the things that I thought was cool under the share part, and I want some of you guys to test this. My screen is being shared. You guys all have cell phones. The link is cool enough. You can click on the link. You can send it out via email. But the thing that caught me as remarkable was a QR tag. We actually have a QR tag here that you can hold your phone right up to your laptop screen right now and capture that QR. That QR turns into the link. You click on the link and you fill out the survey and you get to see what this looks like on the phone right now. And I didn't have to email it out to anybody because I didn't know who the attendees were going to be. I didn't have to send it out via email because, again, I didn't know who the attendees are. Anybody that can see the screen right now, please, if you've got a QR reader app on your phone, I don't care what app it is, please go click on that QR and fill in some kind of a response right now. Follow the link once you've captured it. Fill in a link, and actually, let's see if that response goes up from 2 to 3 in the next couple of minutes. That ends up giving you the ability to go and fill in. Let's say, how often do you use SharePoint? I think I've already filled this in, so I don't get to fill it in the second time. It's picking it up from me. But I'll watch and see what that response looks like. When you finally do go here, you'll see that the analytics that are available in your surveys are really quite nice. They're responsive, but most importantly, they're already formatted to be printed out onto a page and make a nice looking page that I think is absolutely stellar. You could see yourself using this on projects, using this in corporate communications, using this to go and pop up just one page, 2 or 3 question, put your hand on the pulse of the organization type of surveys and quizzes and things like this. It doesn't have to be really large and complex. And already I got 4 responses. I got 2 more responses coming in. I think that QR tag on a web page actually is fantastic. That was really remarkable. Nice tool. I can see the masses actually pushing Microsoft to say, why can't this become the next InfoPath or some kind of a competitor for it? So that's just to give you an idea of what the forms demo looks like. I'm going to minimize that and get it out of the way. And we're going to see how much more we can get through before the end of the day. I was going to try to talk about and see if I can squeeze in a Share Integrate demo. It's 12:57. It's not fair. It's too late for that. I'm going to save that one for next month. BYOP, we got a little hint at what some of our problems were, but there wasn't enough time to cover it. It's typical. And next month, September 21st, is going to be the next, Elizabeth, do I have that right? Is it September 21st as our next Chicagoland SharePoint Users Group?
It's the 20th.
20th.
September
Sorry,
20th.
it's
okay.
The 20th. Ignore that slide. But we are going to be diving into Teams. We're going to be diving more into communication sites and talking a little bit more about integration and what's possible when you consider SharePoint as an integration tool, integrating into other line of business systems. So there's some other references. End of the session. Thanks everybody for staying on. Thanks to Michael. Thanks to Paul. Thanks to Angie. Thanks to Jay for what I thought was a absolutely wonderful Chicagoland SharePoint Users Group session. And watching the next month, we may actually be reincarnating ourselves as the Midwest SharePoint Users Group session, following a pattern that even Paul hinted at a few minutes ago. Talk to you guys next month.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.